What's going on, folks? Welcome to another edition of Pardon the Brick Ruption. But this time, we're talking Lego Masters. That's Corey. I'm Mel. What's going on, champ?
What's going on, man? You know what it is. We talked about the thing that kind of made us, connect as brothers and kind of made us a little bit more famous in the Lego community, Lego Masters.
Yes.
First two Lego Masters, the season, first season, and now we're up to season 5, man. We are now relics. We're no longer grandfathers. We are relics. We are ancient history. They're looking at the hieroglyphics of us on the seasons, and they're following our mold. So, that's always a good thing. I love seeing it continue on. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, man. Life is full circle, man, and definitely this episode shows you things that are full circle, and we'll talk about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, first up, we cut right to the opening scene. You see the teams, you see Will, there's Jamie and Amy, and they're playing the wedding song. Somebody's getting married, somebody's going to the church. Will says, "Love is in the air." There's a wedding theme. Will says, "You may be seated." Opening challenge as the wedding ceremony, right? What's your first thoughts?
My first thoughts is basically, number one, I like it. I like the fact that we're doing new things. Mm-hmm. And that's what you need from a season 5. Mm-hmm. Season 5 is following 4 seasons of Lego Masters, and it's very hard to repeat, right? And if you're repeating something, that might lose the viewership. So I like the fact that we're going with a theme that, number one, not even casual fans of Lego would be into. Everybody's been to a wedding. Everybody's seen that wedding cake. Number two, we're asking not only for the teams to come together as teams, but to build super teams. And that's very early into the season. This is the second episode, and already we teaming them up. We haven't even seen them, get a good glimpse of how they build. We only got one challenge out of the way. So it's awesome to see that. I love the theme. I love the fact that they went ahead and they created these super teams. I think that's cool.
Oh, they hit us with their conjoining teams at this point. So now you fill it out, and we're only like 2 episodes in. Like they're 1 episode in. They're working on 2, and now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out the mojo with your partner. On that first episode. But now you got to figure out 2 other people's building style, right? And they did this before. This is not new, Lego fanatics. This is not new. This was on season 1. And this was at the final 4 episode where you had Aaron and Christian, Boone and Mark, Tyler and Amy, and Sam and Jessica. And Sam and Jessica teamed up with Boone and Mark, and Tyler and Amy teamed up with Aaron and Christian. And
see, I thought that made more sense because you got to shake the branches. You got teams that are strong holding on. You got to shake to see which team's gonna fall off, and we saw the team fell off. So I thought it made more sense to do a challenge like that towards the end of the season, not in the beginning of the season. But it does show the stronger teams, the teams in the middle, are struggling. So I guess that's good to know for the competitors.
Yeah, it definitely put a microscope on like you said, the strong teams and who's weak on these right here. So what do you think of Will Arnett's new assistant? She looked like she's taking over the job. She's willing and dealing for his hosting job.
She willing and dealing. I like that. I think it's a nice twist. I mean, you and I, we've been in the studio. We know that there's nothing there. Gotta add all that stuff at the end and everything like that. But I felt like whoever the actress was that they got to voice the character, I think I see that character again. I feel like we need to see that. Again, season 5, we've seen Will Arnett for 5 seasons, and he's the only host. So, as much as I love Will Arnett, and he's a cool dude, every now and again we do need that mix-up. Season 2 had a nice dynamic where they had Natalie. She was kind of being that mix-up, even though she was a contestant. We still saw that, and then we had the evil Will Arnett and stuff like that. So I like when Will Arnett is bouncing off of someone else, where he's allowed to open up his comedic chops against someone else. So I think it was good to have that particular character there. I hope we see more of them.
Yes, me too. Me too. It was like you said, Will Arnett is like the everyday type of milk that you put in your cereal, and this one here was still bland like eggnog. So the challenge is out, right? The challenge is that all teams combined have 4 hours to build the tallest cake. The tallest cake will automatically have a bid into going into the next round, and everything else is all aesthetics after that.
Yeah.
The teams get racing off, they run to go grab a ring box, and they find their minifigures, right? So first teams up were Corey and Rebecca. They got the zookeepers and scientists, and they're teamed up with Joey and Anthony.
I thought that was a good team up. Their styles are totally different. The dynamic is totally different.
Mhm.
One is a married team that are also wedding DJs.
Right.
So I think they were shoo-in for this challenge. Not
Yes.
quite. And they
Yes.
have the two educators that are together. They're not related. They don't have any connection to each other besides work. So
Right.
I thought that was the most mixed up of the teams. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Next up, we have Nikki and Britton with John and Justin, and they pulled the fairy captain and the ice queen.
I thought that was a great dynamic because you already got a built-in story right there.
Mhm.
And then you have the Ice Queen. I mean, what better way to put those two together? And I thought the teams that came together, the two best friends and the two sisters, I thought that those two together was really, really good.
All right, next up is Ann Luke with May and Jamie. They pulled the T-Rex fan and the cardboard robot. What do you think about that team?
All right, so that particular team, again, very interesting dynamic. Very interesting dynamic. You got so good because that's a mother-son team and that's a daddy-daughter team. So you got two teams that have a parent and child dynamic. So I like that. It would kind of give me Brady Bunch vibes. Okay. I'll be honest with you, because you got your mommy and your daddy, you got your son and daughter. I kind of was vibing off of the Brady Bunch, but I think it was a good dynamic.
Yeah. All right. Next up, you have Sage and Ian, Ben and Michael, and they pulled the Aristocrat and the Royal Guard.
Again, even the minifigs, that's a built-in story right there that you can definitely roll with. And the two teams, those are the two teams that were in the final two last episode. So you got your two strong teams together, and it's two sibling teams, two brothers, and then you have a brother and sister team. So, and then they were deemed the singles table. So you got a lot of stuff riding, a lot of story going on at that table. So you definitely need story to bring it out.
All right. Our next team is Marcella and Krista with Alex and Tone. They pulled the carrot mascot and corn on the cob guy.
Yeah, vegetables. Two vegetables that don't go together at any time whatsoever. And it shows. We'll talk about it later on in the episode, but it definitely shows that they had the most difficult combination of minifigs, and I think that was kind of deliberate because these two teams, one team was in the bottom two the last episode, and the other team was kind of lost in the shuffle. And you've said it multiple times: if you're caught in that middle shuffle, that's not a good place to be. You want to be you got to get out of that shuffle. So second episode is fine, but they put those two teams together for a reason.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so teams get at it. The clock starts, and they start their builds. Mom and son, Ann and Luke, teams decide to go with height over aesthetics. He says 7 feet, like it's easy to put together in 4 hours. Telling you as a fan, I like to build things real tall. 4 hours building something tall is never a good mix. I get you want to be the tallest in the room out front, but that's a tough gamble, because you still have to remember to put something on it.
Yes. And I felt I was getting vibes of something that happened in episode 2. So episode 2, it was not episode 2. Sorry. I'm getting vibes from season 3. Season 3. So they did the bull challenge where they had to do the bull ride. Now there was a height requirement on the bull ride. and the teams had to build something that was going to meet that height requirement. One particular team decided to build a character that didn't make the height requirement, but they build tall ears on it to reach that height requirement. So in other words, you really not putting your effort in the size of the build, but just enough to get to that height requirement. And that could spell disaster in some cases, because the Brickmasters, they're looking for a consistent story, a cohesive story. And if you got this big story in the bottom and then you just got this tall thing just to reach the top, you're kind of taking a shortcut, because you didn't really think about what story is going to go all the way up there. And they pointed it out throughout the episode. Hey, we got this beautiful thing down here, but how does this connect? You just got a whole Technic thing that's going up. How does it connect? And and there goes your challenge.
Yeah. Next up, we have Corey and Rebecca putting story together.
Now, again, these two, Corey and Rebecca, they are DJs. They are wedding DJs. So they've seen all types of cakes, and I felt like they already had a good built-in story. You know, when it comes to the teams that they were together with, I don't know how much storytelling they're good with, but I felt like Corey and Rebecca should have been able to lead the team, and I think they kind of did in the direction of the build. And you kind of get an idea of it because you have the two professions coming together. But as we know, as we get closer to the judging, some of that got lost in the shuffle, and I think is mainly because of the fact that you were kind of focusing on one particular aspect and you kind of forgot the other aspect, and that happens.
Yeah. Next, we have Alex and Tone goes for aesthetics over height. They want to have the best looking cake. Alex and Tone, a chocolatier and a graphic designer, both are skateboard enthusiasts, sit down with Marcella and Krista to decide to make a cake made out of, I don't know. Are you scared about this team yet?
So here's the thing, man. When I thought about the direction they were going, the first thing I thought about was our champ Tyler and his carrot build, because he built a carrot with a face, and up to this day, that's still one of my favorite challenges, my favorite builds from Lego Master. So I was hoping, and I saw where they were going with it, because if you look towards the bottom of their build, you can see the shape of the carrot coming into form. But then they were like, "Yeah, we only have about 4 hours. We're just gonna can it, and we're just gonna continue to just build the rest of the cake." And I was just like, "Oh." And it kind of shows like these are the two teams that are kind of struggling, especially with a challenge that's 4 hours. You got 4 hands, and if there's no direction to where those 4 hands are going, you're just building random stuff and just slapping it together, and that's how it kind of turned out. So it's hard to do that. It's hard.
It is very, very hard. So we have Sage and Ian, Ben and Michael are going for the height. A multi-tier cake that is aristocrat that wasn't truly in love with her suitor, and her real love was a royal guard protecting her all along. That's a great storytelling.
That story, I thought that was probably the strongest story, one of the strongest stories of the episode. And not only did they go for height, but they told a consistent story from the very bottom of the cake all the way to the top of the cake. It showed how they fell in love, you know, why she wasn't happy with the person she was supposed to get married to. Then it showed how they were spending time together. Then they showed how they kicked this aristocrat off the cake and stuff like that. And they were standing on top. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, yo, the cohesive story going all the way up was great. Honestly, I think what hurt that team is the fact that they were trying to go so tall. I think if they brought those layers down to like consistently instead of those pillars in between to give it the height, if they had that consistent story straight up like that, I think it would have got them definitely up there. But,
they would have wanted aesthetics over because you had the storytelling. They definitely would have wanted aesthetics.
Yeah, exactly.
Use the time to put the detail in versus the height. Yep. So teams are now asked to meet to the middle of the floor, and they break out in a dance competition. We kind of seen that before, didn't we?
We've seen some shenanigans during the middle of the build.
How serious it was, you know. Manny and Pops was out there dancing. You know, he was dancing.
We did a push-up challenge.
A push-up challenge. Yeah,
we did a push-up challenge. Episode 2, we did a push-up challenge. Me, Travis, Christian, Pops got into it.
Right.
Yeah, we did a push-up challenge, but they ain't show that one on TV.
Yeah.
You know what? I like the fact that the two brothers, they were building and they was like, yo, dude, we only have 4 hours. We ain't got time for that.
Some stuff you can't get down with the shenanigans. It's about
They were doing a Congo line and everything. I'm sorry, yo. If I got if I got 4 hours to do this challenge, I'm not dancing around with no Will Arnett. Yo, dude, talk to me when we got 12 hours on the clock. Talk to me when we got 10 hours on the clock. I got time for this, man. I like the fact that the brothers were staying focused and they stayed there and they were doing their work. Everybody else, they were just having too much fun. Ain't time for fun. We here to win. So that's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah. So Will asks, how is this challenge is going to work? Amy elaborates how the challenge is going. She said, because we throw teams into a super team to build the wedding cakes, and each team has a couple of minifigures to build a cake around. The tallest cake will be safe from elimination. But they'll have a chance to also have a chance to move their build to the gallery. You remember doing something like that? You remember doing something like moving your build to the gallery? You remember your stuff doing something like that?
I remember we had to do something like that in our season, but I do remember one particular challenge where someone had to move their tower to the gallery and someone went right and the other person went left. And that thing came crashing down. So much so that my man ran off set. Camera crew was right behind him watching them tears fall.
Yep.
I was expecting that. I'll be honest. I thought I was going to see that again. I think these teams had 4 seasons to prepare for Lego Masters, so they have no excuse. They know exactly what they were doing. I love how they were moving those towers into that gallery. And, and I don't think they've ever mentioned the height of the lower portion of the sign where it's 10 feet. I don't think they've ever mentioned that in Lego Masters. So now us as viewers, we now know, oh, they got about 10 feet. They got to clear 10 feet. And they gotta get it enough to where it's not going to hit the top and the bottom ends are going to fall out. So that right there was another challenge. This episode had a whole bunch of twists and turns, man.
So they zoom into Nikki, Britton, and John and Justin, right? Remember, they pulled the ferry captain and the ice queen, and that team anointed Justin as the team captain. So he's taking the challenge, but yet he seems to be unsure of himself as being the leader.
That's never easy. And me and you, we've had that experience being on the Spectacular special where the celebrities are not Lego masters. They don't know nothing about this arena. And we have to be the ordained leaders of our teams, where in the past we may have leaned on another builder to kind of take lead and stuff like that. So the fact that they gave it to Justin, and Justin seemed like he was very, very equipped in the role, because he was telling them, all right, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that. All right, can we do this? Oh, this looks a little plain. All right, team meeting, let's come together. How can we change this color up? And I think he had strong enough builders around him that will help him with his leadership capabilities. So it's never easy to be the leader, because if you lose, they're not going to blame each other. They're blaming you. So that's tough.
That's very tough. Anne and Luke, the mother and son team, Anne is plugging away at the aesthetics, and Luke is locked in on the height, right? So you see this big Technic rod that Luke pulls out, and it's about a good 7 feet. I think he made it, but he's going for a little bit more, right? But it's plain Jane. It looks like a electrical conductor rod at this point, because there's nothing on it. There's nothing on it. So here's the thing: is how do you blend that rod into the main focus of the build? Because now you're taking something, and now it's the main focus because it's the biggest thing in the room.
So if you look at the other team, what the other team did, they continued the story each level all the way up. You're just meeting the requirements. You're just trying to have the tallest thing in the room. Honestly, it didn't connect at all to the overall build. The overall build is full of color, is bright. Then you have this gray rod that's just going up just so you can just hit the height requirement. It almost felt like they were doing 2 different challenges. It felt like the 3 members of the team was working on the actual challenge, and the other member was just working on something. Just you always got that one person that's like, all right, yeah, I want to kind of do this. I always get students like that. Like we're working together, but I want to build this. I want to build a gun. Like, yeah, that has nothing to do with what we're doing over here, though. So, I mean, I get what he was trying to do. I mean, and ultimately it did work out for him, but I mean, he definitely jeopardized his team going that high and not having a consistent story going all the way up. And I love the mother. The mother, she stepped in. She was like, well, we could do these little drapes and we could kind of drape it around and everything. Right. But it's like, it's like, I mean, the brick masters are seeing right through it. Like, you just throw something there just to kind of cover it. And Jamie, he doesn't like no buildings that's empty. You know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
But he gonna look at it. He gonna be like, yeah, that's nice. But all I see is this great pattern. I just see this great slab of plate on it. Like, how does it connect to the story? And I mean, he did his job. Right. He wanted to get something tall. He said he was going to go for something tall. He definitely did. I don't know if he has the record of the tallest build in the brick pit, but he definitely went for it. So, hats off.
Right, hats off. Not bad. So Alex and Tona are like in the struggle, right? They got the carrot and corn, right? And they're trying to figure out how do you marry the two because the two just don't go well. They don't even go well on a plate together. So. No. So they're struggling, but that's not the only thing they're struggling with that build, and Amy and Jamie bring it out on them too. Like even before they talk to them, this spacing in the build, you can see some gapping in the build and stuff, something that's supposed to be flush and it's not really polished off.
Right. And that was a struggle in itself, because again, you have 4 members that are working together, but if those 4 members have been struggling, I mean, we only have one episode to kind of look at and contrast, but one of those teams was in the bottom. So that shows that there was a bit of a struggle when it came to time management. And they've mentioned it for the first episode. And now you have a challenge where time is not on your side. You only have 4 hours. That's a speed build right there. Right. So I think where they kind of hurt was when they decided not to continue that a carrot going all the way through to the top. If you saw the images, like the animated image, they showed a carrot that was going to be built all the way up to the top of this cake. And I thought that would have been a really cool look to see an actual carrot built all the way to the top of it, and then kind of find ways of creating these pillars to look like corn on a cob. I think that's the direction that they were going for. But again, you have a time constraint, you have a struggle because you're not going for height, so you got to be going for aesthetics. But if the story isn't there, and if the 2 characters are not connecting that story, you're going to have struggles all the way through. And it showed throughout this entire challenge. They just couldn't, all 4 of them couldn't get on the same page. They had to call a group meeting and be like, all right, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Yeah, this part that we were going to do, we're going to have to scrap it. We can't even get to that. I don't think I could do that. And then he had that gap, and then the pillars were all off key. Yeah, they were struggling in that challenge. That was a bad challenge for them.
Yeah. It's tough to number one, come up with a creative story and to execute it through brick, but it's even tough to collaborate with people you never built with before, right? And so you're doing, and it's project management at that point. But at the same time, you were the project manager when we did Buddy versus Christmas, and then you had 4 other talents, including yourself. So now you got 5 talents on the floor creating one thing, coming together, creating one thing. And at first, we were doing well with the collaboration. With the legs, where we all were apart, putting the legs together, and then we stopped at the hip. Once we got to the hip, we broke off in teams. You build this one, you build that, and then we came back to the drawing board. Now that dicey. We were able to execute, but like you said, at the same time, it's the cohesion of having the group build together.
Yeah, that's never easy. But the Lego Masters decided to do that. Second episode, so they try to separate the men from the boys, the women from the girls. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely it displayed your talent. This one definitely did. All right, it's that golden hour. So the teams are down to 1 hour, and Will likes to announce the last hour. Says, hey, let's work together as a team because she was outshining your boy Will. So he said, let's work together as a team and let's announce the last hour together. They do so. But in minutes later, Will comes up with an announcement from Trisha that they're closing the brick pit. Have you never ever? And I hear Anthony says in the history of Lego Masters, the brick pit has never been closed. It hasn't been announced as closed, so you're correct with that. But the brick pit has been closed before.
Has been closed before. See see, we're the guinea pigs, man. Season 1, man. We are the guinea pigs. But as an official part of the challenge, Brick Pit has never been closed as an official part of the challenge.
Right, official.
So, and we know how important it is to utilize that brick pit. You get to that last hour, now you're thinking aesthetics. You're looking at it, you're like, all right, what areas are lacking? Where can we go? We run to the brick pit. We grab some minifigs here. We grab some items here, some accessories. Bring it all back. We put it all together. Right. They have to now. Will Arnett gave them 5 minutes to go into the brick pit, get what you need, and then get out. So you have 5 minutes to now go in, and thankfully, a lot of the builders, and I saw this, and we've done this. When we're bringing stuff from the brick pit, we don't put them back. We leave everything at the table. So we got a lot of stuff at the table while we're building. So we don't really need to go back to the brick pit. The last hour, we pretty much got everything we need. But you still have that what do you call it? The faux pas, the fear of missing out. So you run back in there, you just start grabbing stuff you really don't need.
Because you already have it on the table.
You already have it on the table. So, but I do like that dynamic because maybe you need to pivot in the last hour. Maybe you say, oh, we like that long ride. We need to get stuff that's going to go on that long ride. We don't got nothing here. We got to go back in there. Because you remember when they ran back in, they were like, I need ropes. We need ropes. Mom was like, the daughter was like, yeah, I got ropes. I got ropes. So imagine if they were there and they ain't had no ropes. What were they going to use? So I like that dynamic. It does add more of a challenge once that brick pit is closed. I hope not to see it again for this season, but I think they should implement that once per season. So maybe this could be the kickoff to that.
Yeah, I get it. Like it's definitely a challenge, right? I believe it's definitely a good challenge. Like it makes you build a lot quicker and think a lot faster because time is dwindling down, right? You can't lollygag your way to the brick pit to get items. So I definitely get that. I get that a lot. All builds are completed now. So now each member has to get these builds to the gallery. Do you notice something that's happening here? They don't have carts, friend. Like there's no rolling tables here. They are carrying these things to the gallery.
For a STEM educator who has done a lot of tall tower challenges, where I've asked the builders to bring their tower to the table, or I've carried it to the table, that is not easy because you have to stabilize your foundation. You have to stabilize your main frame. And then for those who have tall towers, you got to stabilize that top. And you have to clear the bottom of the rafters. You got to kind of clear that. And we were told it's about 10 feet. And these builds were looking well over 10 feet, really, really high. So, seeing them crouch down and kind of squirm to get it underneath, it's amazing that the two tallest towers did not fall, because I was looking at it and Ian, I know Ian. I've seen him before. Ian is he's pretty tall, but that's a lot of pressure. And he was saying his hands were slipping and it was shaking, and that's dangerous because it only takes but one person. So seeing them crouch down and kind of squirm underneath, that's a challenge. And Ian, I know Ian, I've seen him before. He's kind of tall, but he has to hold up that tower. But then you have Mike. I felt like Mike could have just carried the whole thing by himself. I mean, he's a professional bodybuilder. His arms are as big as, like bowling balls, so he could have just carried, he could have just carried it in. And you know, and the cool thing about these challenges is that in Lego Masters, they say that you can't take it apart and then reassemble it in the gallery. It has to go into the gallery one time as one piece. So the other teams, I know the other teams weren't struggling because they had a very modest build where it was easy for them to transport. But these two tall towers, these two tower cakes, I was shocked that the two of them got underneath the gallery and they were actually able to position them. So now the cakes are in the gallery, and now we're up to the time that we're looking forward to the most is who won. All right. So before they announced the winners, they had to measure who was going to be the team that was going to be safe from elimination.
Right.
So, you know, Will Arnett got out his ruler and he looked at the two teams that were the tallest in the room. And of course, the tallest cake was won by the team of the mother and son and the father and daughter team.
Right.
They definitely got it. I'm going to call them Team Brady Bunch. Team Brady.
Team Brady Bunch.
So they were the ones who won. Again, I think their cake could have definitely stood up in the challenge.
Yeah.
However, that tall rod, it just takes away from the entire cake because it's not like the cake was reaching halfway up to where that rod is. It's like it was at a certain level and then the rod just took over. Wow. So he did his job, right? He said, I want this. I'm in school for mechanical engineering. I'm in school for this. Let me do this. I got this. And he delivered, you know, but that might not play out the same way every time. No. So, but now we're at the winners. So first team that's announced as part of the top teams is Sage, Ian, Ben, and Michael. They are the team that got into the first slot, and then the second slot was for Britton, Nikki, Justin, and John. Okay, and they came out, and those were the two top cakes. Like I said, I thought one team was a shoo-in because one, you had the tallest cake, one of the tallest cakes, and a great cohesive story. Yeah. I was a bit surprised when they did call out Nikki and Britton and John and Justin, because even though I love their cake and I love their story, for Amy, color is everything. And I didn't see a lot of color, but then again, they still played to the characters because there's not going to be a lot of color in an iced out cake. So I think they played to their strength by only using a few colors that was dignified with ice.
Right. So, but it was clean. It was definitely clean. It was a clean build. It was
a clean build. Yeah.
I think that's what kind of got them over was the craftsmanship of the build itself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like it's hard to you know make sure you stick the landing with limited colors. So but it is a wedding cake. So
it is a wedding cake. So they had it layered as a wedding cake. They also had the colors that look like a wedding cake. It looked like a cake from far. So I would say out of all the other teams, their cake did look like an actual layered cake. So I think they did well when it came to that. And you know, the Brick Masters, they're critiquing and they're talking about both of the builds. They're talking about both of the stories, but they did mention something about the other team, and that was the icing that they had on the side. They talked about how the icing was kind of draped down. And for Brickmaster Amy, she would have loved to see that continue all the way down throughout the cake. And I think that's a great point because you got that one section. Yes, it's part of that story in that part of the cake, but to make it seem like a cohesive cake and not just different layers of different stories, they could have had that draped all the way down to get to the bottom. And I think that was something that they could have done and they should have done. So that was great. That was great eye by Brickmaster Amy to catch that.
Those are our top two. Who was our bottom two?
So our bottom two teams were Alex and Tone, Marcella and Krista. They were there. And then the second bottom team, Corey and Rebecca. Kind of hurts to say Corey was in the bottom. I don't like my name in the bottom two. Well, our name in the bottom. Anyway, Corey and Rebecca and Anthony and Joe. They were in the bottom two. And let's talk about the bottom two. So both teams kind of struggled. And as far as telling their story, I think one team struggled more because when you see the final product, you kind of see where there's areas where parts were not connected. The layering was off centered, so it did not come together at all. And then the other team that was in the bottom two, and even though their cake, it looked like a cake, and they had a story, one of those characters were lost in the story, and they added like music notes, and I understood the music notes, but I was like, how does that really connect the scientists in all of this? Like, we understand the zookeeper, and we see the tiger stripes and everything like that, but then we also see different things that really doesn't connect to the scientists, and that's what kind of, and when Jamie says something like that, like, I don't see where it connects, or I want to see more of, then that you have to have an equal balance of connection between the two characters, and I think they kind of lean more heavy on one and not the other, and that's what led them into the bottom. But just stepping back and looking at the two models, clearly you can see one team that was struggling. One team just missed one thing, which would have, bumped them up into a better category. So, so our bottom team, our bottom super team was Alex and Tone, Marcella and Krista. So those were our bottom teams. Now, I'll admit, I was getting ready to go on here and rage if what I thought was going to happen happened. We are at a second challenge. We sent people home the first challenge. Are we going to see a double elimination? And I think Will and Ness said we've never done a double elimination in Lego Masters before.
Would have been another twist. Would have been another twist. Would have been right on.
It would, yeah. And I would have been like, wow, just like that, we're down to single digits.
Right.
So I was nervous. I was nervous if they were going to actually go forward and do that. But what's her name? Trisha stepped in and saved the teams. Both teams.
Yep. Nobody goes home.
Nobody goes home. And they did that to us in season 1. First episode.
Yep.
We could have sent someone home, and they said, nah, we're gonna save you. That's supposed to light a fire underneath you.
Yeah.
Because you now know, number one, and I think it was Krista who said this, we're the underdogs.
Yeah.
There's no way to go but up. And you're absolutely right.
You gotta fight your way out of that box.
You got to, because there's another way to go, and that's to go home.
Yep.
So now the fire is lit, and now you got to step it up. I mean, this is not a competition to just be on TV and just say, hey, I made it on Lego Masters. You're representing your town, you're representing your family, you're representing your everything. You're representing. So you got to come with your best. And it's hard to do under that time constraint. So I get it. So again, the two teams that were at the winning circle, I thought one was a shoo-in just because of his height. Wasn't the case. Winning team was Nikki and Britton, John and Justin. That was the winning team. They got the second win of Lego Masters Season 5.
They did.
I think they came together the best as a team. They had a great story. Not only did they have a great story, the build was consistent from the very lower layer all the way to the top of the cake. They had a very consistent story, and I think they all worked together. Justin should tip his hat. He did a great job leading his team into victory. So it was a great job, well earned. I think the other team that was there, I think they did an amazing job. They are considered the strongest team right now because they were both in the top 2. So, but they just lost. So now everything is shifting, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that shift. All right. So one team is not going to just lay waste to the rest of the teams. That team can catch an L too, and now we've seen it. So where do we go from here? That's the next question.
Yeah. Well observed.
And speaking of which, I can answer that question because next week's episode is called, I think it's called Falling Off or Falling Off the Cliff. I'm just speculating. That's the name of it. Over the Falls.
Okay.
Over the Falls. Okay. So we're back in the brick pit. We're back to being single teams, and the challenge is to build a character that's going to go off of this waterfall. You already know I hate this episode because they're going to be destroying Lego, intentionally. But they have to build a character. And this is where you're going to see a lot of these teams shine, because we started seeing a little bit of that character building in the first episode. Now you're going to see it on a bigger scale. And they're building it with the intention of falling off of something. So you're going to capture it in slow-mo. So you're going to see it, and you got to build the character where it has a very funny reaction going down to the bottom of these falls. But not only that, we're introducing something else. And a treasure chest fell over the top. When it fell over, it looked like that something emerged from it. And when Willa then opened it up, it was the golden brick.
Oh.
So the golden brick is coming back for this episode 3. But there's a decree. Whoever, I don't know, they kind of splice it a little bit, but it doesn't seem like the winning team will get the golden brick. I believe that team has to choose someone else to receive the golden brick.
Okay. That's
so
good.
Do you want to win to stay in, or do you want to get just enough that somebody will give you the golden brick?
It depends on where you at in the chain, right? Like if you're part of that top 2 that keep winning, right? And you could win any challenge without that brick. Like Mark Owen, they can win any challenge without the brick.
Right.
Tyler and Amy could win any challenge without the brick. Do you really need that golden brick? Nah, you probably don't.
Exactly.
So you would give that as a gift to maybe to one of the, I hate to say this, one of the weaker teams. So if they have a bad day, that they'll survive another week. But then after they spent that brick, you got to get your act together. But because I gave you a break.
But here's the thing, though, man. There's $100K on the line.
Yeah.
The big yellow trophy at the end of the road. Yeah. That's the Lego Master Champion. Really want to, this is where the mind game comes into effect. And this is where you have to start thinking, all right, do we save a weaker team knowing that we can get the favor returned? Or maybe that's the challenge that we're struggling on and we need that golden brick. And maybe that's the challenge where we're tight. We're in the bottom with that same weaker team, and they use the golden brick to send us home.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to consider. And again, they spliced it, so that may not even be the rules going into next week's episode. But I think we're going to get some sparks flying next week and things falling. So it's going to be a interesting episode, not to say the least.
Indeed, definitely interesting, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you know what?
What'd you say?
I was gonna say, man, you know what? Season 5 is here. I'm excited. I think that us talking about these different episodes going forward, it gives a little bit of an insight of what the Lego Masters would be thinking. Granted, we're not in their condition and situation, but we understand what it's like to challenge for something and know what it's like to be up against other people. So
it's like one of the new contestants said. They did say in their interviews, like, you know what, you watch the show at home and you think, oh man, that's easy, I could do that, until you actually do it. And they put the time clock on you and they put all these variables in your face, and it's like, wait, what? Ready, set, go.
Let's go. They're gonna learn, man. They're learning, man. They're learning. But yeah, man, I'm excited for the third episode that will be coming out. Second episode was awesome. They did a great job. But yeah, we off to the races now, man. We off to the races. We're gonna crown a new champion at the end of the season. Who is it gonna be?
Yeah.
Who to tell? Nobody has an edge right now.
Nah, it's too soon to tell. Definitely too soon to tell.
Too soon to tell.
Yep. All right, then, folks. That's all we have to unpack for you. We will see you again next week, right after Lego Masters airs.
Sir.
Till then, we'll try to do better. Good night, America.